Making Mayberry, the creation of America's town. The small rock was perfect, nice and round, just right for a good ripple-making plunk, and the little fellow who pitched it toward the lake just couldn't be any more wholesome and all-American. He had the ideal country boy mop of tousled hair to match his innocent, freckled-faced smile. When the CBS television cameras focused on the view in the summer of 1960, it seemed like the ideal background for the opening credits of their new show. And it certainly was, except for one problem. The rock fell short of the water and bounced along the ground. The same thing happened with a second take. The little 6-year-old rock pitcher, Ronnie Howard, just didn't have the strength to toss it from their path all the way to the lake. The scene, however, was too idyllic to scrap. The show's assistant director, Bruce Bilson, soon conceived another strategy. He hid a prop man behind a bush on the set. This time, when Ronnie tossed the rock, Bilson yelled, "Throw it!" deceiving all but the most perceptive viewers who may have noticed a little longer than normal lag time before the rock touched down. The switch worked perfectly. Cut, print, team it up with a bouncy tune and some perky whistling, and you're ready to kick off a long string of colorful homespun stories. Those stories and the cast of characters who enacted them would one day turn the fictitious little town they inhabited into a lasting symbol of wholesome country values, Mayberry. Like the rock-throwing opening, the series that created Mayberry first needed a little tinkering. Emerging during an episode of The Danny Thomas Show, the skit that would develop into The Andy Griffith Show featured Andy as a country bumpkin sheriff who arrested Thomas for running a stop sign. Also in the skit were Ronnie Howard as Andy's son, and Frances Bavier as a backcountry lady named Henrietta Perkins. She would eventually play Aunt Bee on the resulting series. Andy's character was themed after his popular comedy monologues, like What It Was football. Unlike his later contemplative country philosopher style, he was cast as a heavy-handed hillbilly, sporting a devious ear-to-ear grin. Despite the need for a few tweaks, the episode stirred up positive reviews and put plans in motion for a new show. The producers decided it would be set in the present time, but reflect the values of an earlier, more relaxed era. Though we never said it, and though it was shot in the 60s, Andy Griffith later philosophized, it had a feeling of the 30s. That drift back into an earlier, simpler time would fulfill a desire for millions of viewers to briefly escape from the real-life social turmoil of the decade. As visions of a war-torn Vietnam and police dogs attacking civil rights protesters flashed across their television screens, the timeless, rustic inhabitants of Mayberry helped calm their jangled nerves. Andy, prior to his successful mid-50s comedy monologues, had dreamed of quite a different career destination than Mayberry. His first ambition was to become an opera singer. Somewhere along the line, his vision shifted to that of a music teacher. Perhaps the mental image of his standing on the opera stage, likely in tights, didn't look any better to him than to most of us. After teaching music in a high school for 3 years, he and his wife Barbara set off for careers in entertainment. Together they developed a traveling routine that featured their singing and dancing, as well as Andy's comedy monologues. Soon, Andy would flourish both on Broadway and in the movies. He successfully performed the role of Will Stockdale in the 1955 play No Time for Sergeants, and later in the movie version. His co-star in both the play and movie was Morganton, West Virginia actor Don Knotts. He had perfected the ability to portray a hilarious little bug-eyed, fidgety character. In real life, he was actually quite relaxed and laid back. The two formed a close friendship that lasted for the rest of their lives. As with Griffith and his popular comedy routines, Knotts had also managed to remain in the public eye, portraying a variety of zany characters in Steve Allen's man-on-the-street interviews. When Knotts heard his buddy would be playing a small-town sheriff in his upcoming show, he didn't hesitate to call him. "You got a deputy?" he quizzed. Andy instantly realized the value in their teaming up again. One by one, Andy and the production staff began to populate their little town with residents. Andy, they decided, would be a widower, but should have family, maybe a young son. Their choice, 6-year-old Ron Howard, then known as Ronnie, had already racked up some showbiz credits. Coached by his father, Vance, an accomplished character actor, Ronnie had made appearances in television shows like Johnny Ringo, The Twilight Zone, and Dennis the Menace. Both Andy and Ron would later say that their on-screen reactions with each other stemmed from their warm relationships with their own fathers. Andy's proud nod, for example, when little Opie hit the lake with his rock, even though we now know he didn't, came from his father's customary nod of approval. Francis Bavier, like most of the other Mayberry characters, was no stranger to acting. With professional acting roots tracing back to the 1930s, she was a former cast member of The Eve Arden Show and had her own mid-50s sitcom, It's a Great Life. Similarly, Howard McNair, who played the scatterbrained but lovable barber, Floyd Lawson, had cut his teeth in various television roles. He had also played Doc Adams on the radio version of Gunsmoke. Although most of the emerging cast had similar backgrounds, one was a total greenhorn to television. Griffith discovered Jim Nabors singing in a Southern California nightclub. Originally written in only for a single episode, Nabors' Gomer Pyle soon became an integral citizen of Mayberry. The first episode aired on October 3rd, 1960, to lukewarm reviews but excellent ratings. Early in the first season, Andy's character, like both his roles on the Danny Thomas episode and in No Time for Sergeants, strove for the majority of the laughs. After reviewing the second episode, however, a light flashed on in Griffith's mind. "My God," he thought, "I just realized that I'm the straight man." The outlandish antics of Barney, Floyd, Gomer, Opie, Ernest T. Bass, Aunt Bee, and the others stirred up plenty of laughs. He didn't really need to join them. "I'm playing straight to all these kooks around me," he decided. In an interview years later, he reflected on his transformation from the funny guy to the straight man. "I never regretted it," he confirmed. "The straight man has the best part. He gets to be in the show and see it, too." Andy wasn't the only one who wanted to see the show. It never left the top 10 throughout its 8-year run. Even with Knotts leaving after 5 years and Andy after 6, the magic of Mayberry continued. Although each of its eventual 249 episodes has its followers, in polls of fan club members they often chose Man in a Hurry as the one that personifies the show. Aired in January of 1963, the show involved an impatient businessman from Charlotte whose car broke down in Mayberry on a Sunday. Originally complaining about the sluggish ways of Gomer and the other Mayberry inhabitants, he encountered Andy, Aunt Bee, Opie, and the rest. By the end of the episode, they had worked their small-town charms on him, and he decided to stay around for a while, even after his car was fixed. Like millions of fans, he realized There was something very special about Mayberry, America's town,